Hi, I'm Kathy Krendl, President of Otterbein University. I'd like to welcome you today to Otterbein Spotlight, a series we've been doing talking about new initiatives, events, activities at Otterbein University. I'm very happy to welcome today my guest, Melissa Gilbert. Melissa is Associate Dean and Director of our Center for Community Engagement on campus, and also Tammy Birk. Tammy is faculty member in the English department. She's an assistant professor there, but she's also director of our newly named Women's Gender and Sexuality program. And so we're very happy to have Tammy here today as well. Tammy just recently went before our Senate and had the Women's Gender and Sexuality program approved as a major on Otterbein's campus. So now with the new curriculum, we have a new major to add to our current set of offerings. So we're very happy to have you here today as well. We're going to be talking about a new initiative at Otterbein called Opportunity Nation, and both Tammy and Melissa participated in a national summit in New York City at Columbia University in November, and they are now actively engaged in planning the program that will be a regional summit hosted by Otterbein University in March. So we're going to be talking about how we got there and what we're going to be doing on campus. So let's start with the basics. First of all, what is Opportunity Nation? Tammy, you want to take that one first?
Well, Opportunity Nation is an outgrowth of a fairly significant and visible national organization, BeTheChange.org. Many of you may have heard of it already. And it was pioneered by a group of people who were very concerned about the way in which opportunity, which is really another word for chance, has been declining for so many Americans. Not just a chance for economic security and mobility, but also a chance for personal and professional flourishing. And so they have brought together many national leaders of nonprofits, government agencies, corporations, institutions of higher ed to sort of, to think together and talk through this national dilemma and see what it is that we can do to strategize a way through and out of it.
Okay, and Melissa, is this something that is, I guess, as we think about the idea of opportunity and the national agenda here, how does that translate into a particular community? What does that mean for a community, for example, for Central Ohio or for Westerville?
I think opportunity, if you look at how all of us face the different kinds of roads and pathways to our future, opportunity can mean many different things. It could mean, do you have a meal to serve your family at the end of the day? Do you have access to different kinds of quality schools, higher education? Are there pathways for job mobility? Opportunity can mean, do we have things in place for all community residents to be able to succeed financially, to succeed in their journey toward what Tammy said, flourishing? But all ways that we really hope in our communities. Do we have grocery stores where people can shop for their food? Do we have and afford it? Do we have wonderful places for children to be educated? So opportunity comes in many, many different varieties.
Okay, so what happened in New York City? I'm sure it was a good time, but what was the National Summit? What was the purpose?
Well, we were there.
Yes.
Well, I gather the purpose, it was a rally. Really.
Okay.
It was the launch of the initiative. So there was a lot of national press there, which added to the excitement,
right.
Obviously. It was hosted by Columbia University. There were a whole host of speakers, many of whom, as you know, shared their personal stories,
right.
Of both, opportunities that they've been fortunate enough to sort of claim from the beginning, and those who have overcome actually a lack of opportunity. In some cases, a complete absence of opportunity. So we heard a lot of testimony. Was what it was, personal testimony. And then there were so many leaders of amazing grassroots organizations, so many more than I had ever heard of. That were there working together in afternoon sessions, trying to think through really an action plan, in a language, right, for bringing this, out regionally this spring.
Right. So how did Otterbein get involved in all this?
That's a great question. I think the beauty of Otterbein is that we have quite a history of service to our community. We have a great culture of community service and outreach with our community partners already here
right.
in Columbus and Westerville. We've been recognized nationally for that service. And when the national campaign was looking for colleges and universities who could host regional summits, places where people could gather more locally that didn't have access to New York City. Back in November, they were looking for colleges and universities who had a strong reputation working with community partners who were already involved in creating new pathways for opportunity, especially for youth, looking at our younger students, for kids in high school, but thinking about ways that we could bring youth into the conversation and get them excited about creating new pathways for opportunity. So they turned to Otterbein and said, would you be interested in hosting this regional summit? We'd like to have 12 of those in 2012 across the nation. And we got involved. We said we'd love to do it. It's been something we're committed to at Otterbein, and we'd like to be part of
Did
the
the invitation
challenge.
come as a surprise? I mean, did you have any sense that they were scouting?
We had
Scouting
no,
us?
no,
No.
we didn't.
Okay.
We didn't.
Okay.
No, it was something, and we work quite closely with an organization called Ohio Campus Compact.
Right.
And I think they were absolutely part of sort of the journey to us becoming part of it. They had recommended us,
Got it.
mainly because of our work on the national stage. So,
So Otterbein's one of just 12 institutions in the
Yeah,
entire country.
that's
So
right.
how big a region will Otterbein be covering?
we are really the Midwestern site for Opportunity Nation. We're going to be in Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, and Kentucky. So we'll be, most of the states that border Ohio will be here.
Now, the students went to the National Summit as well, so what were they
Right.
doing?
Well, I can talk about how they were when they were there, and then maybe you can talk about after they returned, you know, what they had to say. I mean, you saw them. I mean, they were, well, for the most part, they were, they sat with and they were thinking things through with other students.
Right.
Okay, we only saw them for part of the summit, and they were there for, actually, I think a couple of days, right? Longer. It was much more involved for them.
Right.
So I think 2 of the 3 had never been to New York City, and 1 had never been out of the state of Ohio. So it was, that itself was amazing to them. But they also were so inspired while they were there by the kinds of students that they were meeting, students
Right.
like themselves, students who were, you know, invigorated to do this work. And I saw them, you know, at the table sketching out the plans for the kind of network that they wanted to build with these new peers. So it was amazing for our students to get a chance to get in on the ground floor of something like this. Yeah, I mean, once you say that, that's
Absolutely,
been
and
their,
they had amazing opportunities to share their own stories and to figure out how to articulate their own journeys and why they chose higher education as a place to sort of practice their voice in the way that they wanted to become leaders in their own communities. They went through some leadership training while they were there in New York.
That's what it was.
And those pieces they really hope to bring back to the Midwest to help train students on other campuses to become community leaders, to become campus leaders, sort of charting out ways for more students to get involved and recruiting that. And since they've been back, they've had multiple meetings with other students across the Midwest who hope to come and join us in the spring. So it's very exciting work for them. They're getting connected, building a
That's
larger
fantastic. That doesn't happen
alliance.
often for students. You know?
This is the outreach beyond our own campus is pretty
Yeah, the
unique.
cross-institutional,
Yeah.
you know, kind of bonding.
So in the spring, March 9th and 10th,
Yes.
Otterbein will be hosting this Midwestern Summit, the regional summit for the Midwest in terms of Opportunity Nation. And let's talk a little bit about that particular event. So March 9th and 10th, the idea is have a keynote event the evening of March 9th and then the 10th, all day workshops, panels, discussions, and so forth. How did you choose those dates?
I don't know. How did you choose the dates?
I'll tell you, one of the most important pieces of those dates is that we really talked to our women's community in Central Ohio. We were looking for, first of all, March is Women's History Month,
That's
so it's
true.
a wonderful time to celebrate the work
Makes
of women
sense.
and to bring conversations together. We looked at what's going on with many of our other community partners and said, what's on your agendas for the entire spring? So why
Spring
is
is
this
so busy.
why is this an important time? And they, you know, we're putting together actually a wonderful, what will be a week of the woman, where there'll be many of our partners are hosting different events that week, and our event at the end of the week will be sort of a culminating event for that piece. It's also a time our students go off to spring break, but it will be our sort of celebration of a time to be reflective.
Yeah.
So they'll get a chance before they leave for spring break to join us for the summit and have some really, I think, amazing conversations with colleagues, students from across the country.
So what's
end
the
of finals
theme?
week, right?
Yeah, end of finals week. So
The
no, it
theme-
won't be. We're not on quarters anymore. This is a real spring
Oh,
break.
right. Sorry, it is right. It is
Yes.
right before spring break.
It will
Sorry.
be, yeah, it used to be that spring break was at the end of winter
Okay.
quarter, but now it will be the middle of the semester, so that's okay. We're all still making the adjustment to thinking in semester terms. But the theme, let's talk about the theme of the Otterbein Summit. So the theme of the National Opportunity Nation sort of covers what everything around the country is going to be focused on.
Yes.
And the partnerships range from everything from the AARP
Yep.
all the way to youth programs, to community-based programs, all kinds of partners in this. And that theme is Opportunity Nation. But the theme of the regional summit for Otterbein will be?
Women and the New American Dream.
Okay, so
we
let's
have-
call up we've got a shot of the website with the address on it, so we can take a look at that as we're talking about it. So Women and the New American Dream. So,
Right.
okay,
So we niched ourselves.
we niched ourselves, absolutely. So let's talk why women. Why we talked a little bit about the disappearance of the American dream as part of the
Yes.
theme
Right.
of Opportunity Nation.
Right.
So New American Dream. Let's take
Well, I
let's
think, yeah.
dissect that a little
a lot
bit.
Of, a lot of people, we know now, feel, dislocated, they feel distressed, they feel shut out and shut down. But women and girls, feel it sometimes in different ways because they are women and girls, because the chances, in other words, the opportunities that are open to them are that much more limited by virtue of their sex. So sometimes their expectations for them come in low. Sometimes they're not paid fairly for what they do. Sometimes they're steered or they're tracked into professions that cannot reward them either economically, or personally for the work that they do. So we feel like, girls and women need to have a broader slate of professional and personal options available to them. And we want to use this summit as an opportunity to think about what higher education can do to ask those questions.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about the history of Otterbein and women just for a second?
Sure.
Absolutely.
This is another reason we're a logical spot for this.
And we, and one of the reasons I think we were also very attractive to the national campaign as a site is because of our history. We were one of the first colleges to open its doors to women, and our two first graduates were women from Otterbein, which is pretty stunning when you think about the time when we were founded. Yeah, exactly. And we also have a history on Otterbein's campus of being part of women's movements. We were part of the temperance movement at the turn of the century, and we've continued that sort of culture of service to women and with women in our community. Many of our partners that we work with through service, through internships, through other kinds of experiential opportunities for our students are at women's organizations and women's groups. So it was a key spot here in Central Ohio for people
And
to
no
be.
female president until now.
That's right.
But
That's true.
And yes,
It's
the
here.
first female president in the
Yeah.
history of our institution.
yeah, well,
That's
there aren't
right.
many in Ohio.
That's right.
So.
Okay, so New American Dream.
Yeah, actually, this was Melissa's idea,
Uh-huh.
and I thought it was fabulous. We all thought it was fabulous because we were struggling with really like a simple definition of the American dream. Something about it felt a little dusty,
Right.
a little dated, and we wanted to sort of provide an opportunity for people to rethink what might constitute the dream, to not assume that there's a template for the dream, that we are in agreement, or consensus about its contents, especially for women and girls. They may want to modify that dream some. They may also want to be critical of it, for what it can't deliver, right? Or maybe what it delivers but doesn't in the end, I think, serve. So yeah, the carrot, and then the new was designed to invite more conversation
Discussion.
about.
Great. Good. Okay, so who's the audience for this regional summit?
We would hope that we will bring to Otterbein's campus community partners, people from all communities across these 4 states who are engaged in the same work, in the work to build new pathways, build a new opportunity for women across the country, but specifically in their regions. So community partners, people from our community who are already addressing and working on these issues. Certainly higher ed, our colleagues, our faculty colleagues, our student affairs staff, people who are engaged in the work of promoting community service learning on campuses. We would hope that other presidents would like to join us in this discussion. Political policymakers in our cities who are also struggling with how do we pull together an alliance of the assets that we have in our communities to do this work together. So we're not being redundant, our work isn't overlapping each other, but it's collaborating. So we like to see all collaborators around the table. There's going to be multiple opportunities at the summit for a lot of dialogue about how we can make this kind of change. And certainly we want students from across all of the campuses. We'll also have some other youth. We'll have, Tammy was talking about girls and women being affected by the lack of opportunity. So we'd like to bring some young girls to campus also to work with our students to be thinking about new ways that they can start
And
addressing these.
not just as listeners, but
Absolutely
as
not,
participants.
yeah.
You know, I mean, so often, like, you know, young girls and young women are sort of cast in a more, you know, just in a more receptive role.
Right.
You know, and we want them, like our students in New York, I mean,
Active.
to serve as initiators.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned community partners a couple of times. Are community partners involved in this?
They are. We've built a community alliance of our partners here in Central Ohio who are helping us really shape the discourse for community members. And that includes people like our YWCA, organizations that support women in business, the Girl Scouts, several of our partners who are also in the government, working in the government, people that are also in food pantries, domestic violence shelters, places that are typically thinking about women's needs in their communities and working to address them. So they're part of the planning process. They've built an alliance with us that we hope will also making contacts through their networks in other states. It's not just a Central Ohio summit. It is one where those networks to other YWCAs, Girl Scouts, those different people throughout the United States that are working on the same issues, we hope to bring into the conversation.
So it's a pretty broad audience, and
It is.
It seems as if the focus is the women and the New American Dream idea, but also bringing together different parties who can help with community development around
Yeah.
those tasks and opportunities.
There are going to be many opportunities during the day to not just strategize. We're also going to be learning from scholars and community members. Some of our key stakeholders in our communities will be sharing their data on where women currently are. So what do we currently know? There's a whole track at the summit that will focus on what do we know right now? What are the obstacles facing women? And then we'll move into other strategies type sessions. How are we going to be working together to build new pathways? And that's where the conversations, we hope, bringing in a very diverse audience of people from different parts of the problem, parts of the solution, can start to strategize together.
Well, there'll be a lot of vitality, you know, because of the diversity in the audience. I mean, normally in academic conferences, you know, they tend, the academic conferences specialize. I mean, student affairs, you know, professionals congregate, you know. I mean, women's studies, you know, academics and scholars congregate, student leaders the same. But this is really, there's a really robust kind of, you know, cross-fertilization, you know, here that I think is going to pay off for us.
So describe to me, you've got people coming together around a common set of issues, trying to work toward an action agenda at the end. How do they get there? What happens during these sessions? Are they, typically in an academic conference, you would have presentations, you'd have a respondent. People will be talking about sort of research areas of focus that have something in common, but how does this differ from that?
This is an unconference.
Right.
Unconference, okay.
Unconference. And the prefix matters.
The prefix does matter, just like the word new.
That's
This
right.
is new and improved American Dream.
That's right.
It is, we have planned for the day some things that are quite unusual to a higher education institution, but are things that have been used all over the world to help generate conversations. So one of those is the World Cafe. We'll be hosting a World Cafe where every voice across the conference will be part of that day, where we'll be charting out the big questions that face us as we're trying to ensure opportunity. We'll be asking questions about how can we build alliances, how can we come together around certain questions and generate new ideas. So the World Cafe model is something that's been used across the globe to sort of,
It's very fun. It's very alive. You migrate from table to table. You know, you're trusted with a number of really interesting questions. You're not talked at. You know, it's very ground up.
we're also going to have a simulation. So we'll be hosting a poverty simulation where people from the community, our students, everybody can be involved in really spending what ends up being 1 hour together, but that constitutes 4 different weeks of a family living at or below the poverty line. So that simulation is a way to really embody something that you're trying to learn about. So instead of going to a lecture and listening to statistics, you actually embody for that hour the person's life that you're trying to understand. And we'll have an opportunity for everybody that wants to be involved in a simulation like that to do that as well. And then there's
And then
different
we have
kinds
some-
of sessions
we do.
too.
We have some interesting formats or modalities, if you want to call them that, so that people can, you know, share big ideas, or even just kind of, I don't know, offer something that's like in its infancy, like an idea that's just getting off the ground, or an initiative that someone is dreaming about, like establishing. But so we have Pachaka Chas. We have a number of them. They're very popular in the design and arts community, but they're brief presentations, 20 slides. Each slide hangs for 20 seconds. You talk over them. You know, so maybe your presentation lasts 7 minutes, but it's designed to sort of tease and provoke the audience into conversation. And then we're also going to have TED Talks, which we're calling Ed Talks, which use more technology. I mean, there still is one person presenting, but they're much more interactive and much less, I think, removed from the audience than is typically the case at academic conferences. So we're trying to also engage our presenters just in ways that I think are atypical for academic meetings.
Okay, so unconference, active
Unconference.
engagement, and experience. It sounds like Otterbein, but
It
yeah.
sounds a lot like Otterbein.
Yes, it does.
we do it our own way.
The
That's right.
university. Take the un out
So
of
what's
university.
the, you mentioned
dash that.
there'll be students from the various institutions around the Midwest, but what is their involvement in this program?
The students, our students on campus, as well as the ones that they met in New York City, are planning an entire leadership track for them. They're planning their own series of sessions that will help them develop as leaders, as well as chart out programs that they can take back to their own campuses.
Yeah.
They will be doing that with young girls from the community, so those girls will be part of that leadership track as well, learning alongside with our students who will actually be running those sessions. A lot of them will be teaching leadership strategies themselves. They're designing the entire track themselves. There'll be some diversity kind of work that they'll do together, some cross-cultural competencies, learning about how to reach out to all communities and bring in diverse voices. They'll also be with us at the World Cafe.
Yeah, they'll talk about it there.
They'll be at the
sure.
World Cafe,
Yeah.
and they will be with us at the town hall at the end of the day,
right.
charting out the future for the agenda and how we really build the alliance that we hope to build.
So when you get to the end of the day, what do you want? What do you hope happens? What do you hope happens at Otterbein, back in these communities, around our community partnerships? We have so many of them. But how can this enrich those partnerships, and what do you, your dream, what is your dream that people walk away with?
Well, we need, you know, to be sort of the center of, or maybe we're just sort of the, you know, the institution that ignites, actually, an alliance or a network that is regional, that cares about these issues, and that thinks together about ways that, you know, higher ed can do the work of Opportunity Nation for women and girls. So if we can pull that off, and I think if the excitement is high and they feel like the conference has been rewarding and we create community, there's no question in my mind that those institutions will join forces with us. And this matters to us institutionally. It's a priority. So we have the resources and the people here that will help organize it if people will join us. So we hope that there's going to be an interest in that. That's one outcome I think we're hoping for.
Absolutely. We hope at just really to think about it visually, we really hope at the end of the day to have a map of the Midwest and to know who's taking responsibility for making change in their own communities. So we will put a giant screen in the auditorium, and people will be able to tell us before they leave that day, what am I taking home? What am I going to do in my own community? If that's a student, if that's a community partner, if that's one of our faculty members, and how they're going to change a particular classroom so that there's more outreach. That by the end of the day, we will have mapped change for women in the Midwest.
I guess we talked about, I think, Tammy, you mentioned that this Opportunity Nation idea came from the Be the Change group. And I recall that in the 2008 time period, the theme was Service Nation. And I know there were some higher education institutions involved, but higher education wasn't a major partner in that go-round, right? So this time higher education is really at the table, and that, I assume, is the idea of getting more youth involved.
Yes.
So that it's more sustainable as we go forward. And so that's a difference. But if you think about that idea of what higher education can do as a partner in this, you've mentioned there'll be younger girls there, there'll be, I guess, middle school, high school girls working with our college students. Why else is higher education an important partner for Opportunity Nation?
I think there's several reasons. One of the critical pieces is that we know in terms of opportunity in our country that access to quality education is one of the key pathways. So
especially for women.
Especially for women. So
Single greatest indicator.
having higher education be at the table to say, we're going to take some responsibility, I think is one of the key reasons why we need to be there. I think certainly having youth voice, having the next generation present as we chart out the future is essential. Can't do it without our next generation. But ensuring that every higher education institution understands that we play a critical role in ensuring that all women have a future where they've been educated, they've been part of community. We've helped in many ways bring multiple communities together to do this work, and making sure that we all have the opportunity to do that is very important.
So in your mind, I guess let's think about Otterbein's history, Otterbein's mission. How does all this fit with Otterbein's mission?
We are an incredibly experiential campus.
Right.
Since the founding of this institution, we have ensured that our students have an opportunity to be in community, making change, whether that's doing research in the community, if it's out with internships, or it's through community service volunteerism.
Right.
It is part of our mission to ensure that every single one of our students, when they graduate, have been networked with our community partners, we talk about educating the whole person, and we do that within the context of community here at Otterbein. So it's a perfect match when we think about our role in higher ed and our students growing as individuals and as members of a community where there's going to need some significant change for us to really flourish.
So if I were in the audience today and I were watching this show and I heard you talk about these great ideas, where would I go for more information?
You can call Kathy.
There is a wonderful website at Otterbein. It's just www.otterbein.com/opportunitynation. You can go to our website. Material is up there now about all the different tracks that will be available. And we also have the registration material. All of that will be on the web.
Great.
So that's the
Well,
best
thank you
place
both for joining us today. Great job. And we'll be looking forward to hearing more about Opportunity Nation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. We went over just a little bit, though.
Just a little
Did we? Okay.
Yeah, just a little bit. I was